We're talking, Barb, about the settlement reached by the National Association of Realtors and how that will impact the real estate industry. Now, the change has taken place. So, how is it working right now?
Well, Richard, let me talk about how it used to work and how it works now. I think that's the best way to put it in context. So, the way it worked for the last 3 decades was that the listing agent would basically negotiate a commission with the seller, and a portion of that commission would be paid by the buyer's agent. So, really, the seller and the listing agent decided on how much commission would be paid to the buyer's agent. That dollar amount or percentage of the sales price is how we normally do it, was published in the MLS. And at that point, it's hard coded. Like if you don't pay it, they'll take you to the MLS police and book you. So that pretty much was how it worked for all this time. And the reason that these sellers sued and why these multiple class action lawsuits started to take off is that some of the sellers are like, wait, hold on. I'm paying the buyer's agent's fee, but then the buyer's agent is beating me up on price, on concessions, on personal property, threatening to cancel the deal, threatening to derail the deal if they don't get their way, all the way through the transaction. So it's kind of like paying for somebody else's lawyer. And so they won these cases. It took 10 years. It's been going on for 10 years this year. And they won all these cases. There were more and more cases. So what was going on is these lawyers would get together and say, all right, let's go for Colorado Springs. Home sellers in Colorado Springs were starting to get the postcards to join the class action lawsuit. If you worked with these brokerages, you could get your buyer's agent commission back. Just join the class action lawsuit, and we're going after them full bore. And the reason why it happened, it wasn't just that the commission was published in the MLS. They also found out through the investigation that some of these brokerages actually had hard coded into their training manuals and systems that, hey, listing agent, if you don't offer at least this much to the buyer's agent is going to steer the buyer away from that house and go find them a house that pays more commission. And so that was going on. That was going on right up until a few months ago. I guarantee you it was happening because, there's a whole bunch of agents out there that don't put service first. They actually put the money first. And they will find a way to discourage the buyer from buying that house based on the commission that's paid. So that was the reason. Plus, it was non-negotiable for the buyers. Now, the buyers essentially paid for that commission baked into the sales price, right? So the theory was, oh, don't worry, you won't have to pay me a thing, Mr. Buyer, because the seller pays my fee, right? So it doesn't cost you a thing, don't worry. But at the end of the day, it drives the prices higher, right? Because it's paid out of the sales price. So the way it used to work, they'd list a house. They'd say, all right, we're going to charge whatever, 5 or 6% commission. We're going to split that with the buyer's agent. The buyer brings the contract, and out of that commission, the buyer's agent gets paid. So what changed is with this National Association of Realtors settlement is that no longer is the commission going to be published anywhere online. And the agents are going to have to, when they're working with the buyer, actually negotiate their fee. They're going to have a written agreement with the buyer on how they will be compensated for their services. And it could be that the buyer pays their fee, could be the seller pays their fee, it could be a combination of both, right? And so that's basically how it used to work, is that really the seller paid the fee. And how it works now, effective last week, they turned the switch off that commission is no longer offered within the MLS or any web portal that's publicly available. That basically the buyer's agent has to negotiate their fee both with the buyer and with the seller. Well, what is the problem? The problem is that the buyers are starting to think, wait. wait, let me get this right. If I spend 500,000 for a house, okay, you're going to make 15,000. What are you going to do for that? Tell me what you're going to do. Find the house? No, I could find the house on the internet. Are you going to get me financing? No, I can get financing, from my lender. Are you going to get me an inspector? No, you're not going to do that. Are you going to negotiate? No, they don't negotiate. And that is the biggest problem. They're not trained to negotiate whatsoever. They're just glorified messengers that fill out a state form to go, here's my buyer, give me some money. Right. And I honestly think, Richard, you're going to think this is very cynical. There are some agents that would just assume we send them the check and they don't do anything. They want me to do everything for them. Did you know that?
I didn't know that, but I guess I'm not too surprised, Barb. You've got a little bit more of a work ethic than some of the people you have to deal with.
Here, what are you doing for me, listing agent? I'm like, what are you doing? So that's going to be the question that buyers are going to be asking. What am I going to get for my money if I have to pay you a portion of or all of that $15,000 commission, right? And so, I mean, the original concept was that if you offer to split the commission out of what the seller's willing to pay, then we leverage not just that agent's buyers, but everybody else's buyers. And then everybody gets paid and we're all happy. But the problem was the internet kind of made the agents a little bit lazy. When everything went online, the agents didn't have to do anything. They would pay for buyer leads through realtor.com or Zillow or some other source, right? And the buyer would say, oh, is that house available? The buyer is deceived into thinking that whoever they're talking to when they ask about this house is the listing agent. But in fact, they're not the listing agent. They're some random agent that paid for leads. And so they ask this agent, oh, I want to see that house. Is it available? And the agent goes, oh, let me check. They would look it up and go, yeah, would you like to see it? And the very first meeting is at the door at the house. They didn't know if the buyer qualified for the home. They didn't know what the buyer was looking for. They didn't have to worry about who was going to pay their fee because it was already hard coded into the MLS systems that they were going to get paid. So all they had to do was open a door, fill out a 10-minute contract, maybe attend the inspection, but I get multiple requests to this day of asking me to just give the combo to the inspector and let them into the home for hours and hours, have nobody watching what the unlicensed, uninsured inspector is doing in that home. Would you like that, Richard?
Not at all. And that is exactly why I want you representing me.
So, so they really became what I call, and I know all the other agents, if they're listening, they're going to hate me saying this, but it's true. They were basically overpaid door openers. I actually had a guy tell me that he thought attending his buyer's inspection, he put this in writing. I think attending my buyer's inspection is a huge waste of my time. And I'm like, wait, let me get this straight. The seller is paying you $20,000. You were at the open house for 1 hour. You wrote a 1 hour contract. I'm giving you credit because you might not have even explained the contract. You might have just spent 10 minutes filling it out and 10 minutes emailing it and maybe answering a few questions. You wanted to skip the 3 hour inspection and want to do the walkthrough. So that's basically 3 hours of work for $20,000. Wow. Yeah, I guess inspection is a big waste of your time. So anyway, my point is now the agents are going to have to substantiate what value they bring. How are they helping this buyer get the house of their dreams and do the due diligence that they need to do to find out about the house so that they get the perfect home for them, right? And they're not trained to negotiate. There's no training in the real estate industry whatsoever about negotiating. Most of it's you email the contract and you wait for a response. That's it. So it's a problem. And I think all of a sudden now they're going to have to substantiate to the buyers, hey, well, this is what I bring to the table, right? Instead, they do things like try to blow up the deals. Like I had one that basically asked for a new roof solely because the roof was more than 10 years old. because their insurance company didn't want to insure it. And we're like, no, there's nothing wrong with the roof. We had a roofer prove there's nothing wrong with the roof. I had another agent recently try to steal excess concessions that weren't used up by the lender. She wanted the seller to write a check to her husband's company. Get this, Richard, this is fraud through and through. And I heard it and went, what? She wanted the concessions that weren't used for the seller to write a check to her husband's fence company, and then they would cash the check and give the buyer the cash. But one problem was the house did not have a fence. And number two, you couldn't count that as qualification for the buyer. It was absolute mortgage fraud. And we're like, oh, heck no, we're not doing that. So this is the crazy stuff that I deal with all the time. And so I think that it's going to be really interesting. There are going to be some agents that are going to get out of the business because they're just not trained and they really don't know how to negotiate, to set, collect, and negotiate their fee. And the way you do that is you provide massive value for the buyers. We know how to do that, but not everybody knows how to do it. Bottom line, at the end of the day, the seller was paying the buyer's agent, right? It was a conflict of interest. My name is Barb Schlinker. I'm the broker owner of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. Barb has the buyer's team and the host of this show, Your Real Estate Voice. And we're talking about what happened before and what's going to happen next. So when we come back, we are going to cover that. And if you are thinking of making a move and you want an in-home consultation on what to do, what not to do, give us a call at 719-301-3900, and we'll be happy to share with you exactly what's going on in the market right now and what you can do to minimize your commission expense and be able to be successful when you sell your home. Richard?
Barb, you've got some hot new listings this week, so why don't you tell us about them? I'm excited. I know you are excited.
Absolutely. But one thing I just want to cover real quick.
How the hell? Wait, I'm sorry. Dang it. I mean, I am missing everything here. Okay. Three, two, one. Barb, the settlement reached by the National Association of Realtors and how that's going to impact the real estate industry. So, how the change has been taking place and how it's working now.
Well, as it stands right now, there is no commission offered in the MLS, and agents must have a written agreement to show homes, which is a good change because before they used to show up at the door and not have any idea what the buyer wanted, nor did they know, they weren't required to know whether or not the buyer had the financial ability to buy the home, which is crazy. So it's a competency issue. I think it's a good thing. It's going to improve the competency issue because now it's going to be a negotiation for an exchange of services, and you'll have to really, the buyer's agents are going to have to articulate their value and set, negotiate, and collect their fee the proper way. Now, what the state just did, which is a big surprise, is because I got contracts. I'm like, okay, so how's it going to work? We don't know. They turn the switch off, and then I get a contract, and I'm like, she didn't put a how she was going to get paid in additional provisions. And then I looked at the contract. I actually read there's a new paragraph that just hit the press in the contract that basically is a form that the buyer's agent can fill out and request their commission and who pays it, really hard coded into the contract. So it's there. It makes it negotiable for sellers, which I think is a good thing. And it also makes alternatives that the buyer could pay it or a combination thereof. So I think that's a good change for the industry. It's going to improve the quality of the agents out there and actually teach them how to negotiate. And I'm thrilled about it. So if you are thinking of making a move, give us a call at 719-301-3900 or go to barbhasthebuyers.com.
Barb, it sounds like that will avoid a lot of that agent drama. Let's shift gears and talk about some of your hot new listings. What do you have this week?
Well, we're going to have agent drama, but it just might be in a different category. So I have two hot new listings I'm actually featuring today. The first one is at 2850 North Shelton Drive. This is over by Colorado Springs Country Club. Absolutely spectacular remodeled ranch, walkout rancher with great Pikes Peak views, completely redone, opened up. You got to come and see it. It'll be worthwhile. And then at 1 o'clock, we're featuring 607 San Clemente Drive, beautiful, also remodeled starter home in the mid threes. Give us a call at 719-301-3900 or go to barbhasthebuyers.com. Richard?
You've been listening to Your Real Estate Voice. It airs every Saturday from 11 until noon, right after Cudlow. If you're thinking of making a move, call Barb, 719-301-3900, or visit barbhasthebuyers.com. Barb, have a great week. We'll talk next weekend.
Thank you. You too.